This is Papa Smurf. You're listening to Our Lifestyle, the podcast, with ODB and the Mayor.
Yo, it's ODB. We're getting ready to roll into the episode. We want to thank our title sponsor, Custom Car Show Productions. Of course, their flagship event is every June in Biloxi. That's scraping the coast. The 21st anniversary show is going to be next year in June 2023. They also have two shows outside of that, including Orange Beach Invasion. That's their next event. That's going down in March in Orange Beach, Alabama at the Wharf. I do believe the show was starting to fill up, but come on down. It's free to spectate. It's an amazing time. Spend your spring break in Orange Beach, Alabama. Again, you will not be disappointed. That's in conjunction with Keg Media. And lastly, we just passed it for this year. Bayou Showdown is the weekend before Thanksgiving in Slidell, Louisiana. These are all under the CCSP or Custom Car Show Production umbrella. Rest in peace, Greg Miller. Enjoy this episode. Yo, it's our Lifestyle Podcast, OLP for short. We are your mini Truckin HQ. We appreciate you checking back in with us every week via OLP. And we can't thank you guys enough. Now, Miggity Mike the Mayor, he is out this week, and I can't blame it all on him. I think it was a busy week on Tuesday for him, or Monday rather, coming back from the long holiday weekend. And in addition to that, what I ended up doing was I spent some time with my son on Tuesday when we typically put together our audio. So it just worked out that we didn't link up this week. But I'm going to try to keep this intro shorter. I always say that, but I am going to try to stick to it. The reason being is we really have a badass in-depth interview that I want to get you guys to. So we're going to get to that here. Now, this episode, we're basically going to have Steve Butts, who is on Instagram, NC Hopsing. So it's NC for negative camera _ HOPSING. If you want to take a look at his Instagram, during the audio or afterwards, we'll of course shout that out later as well. So we're going to have Steve on, and again, he lent a lot of time to us. Kind of an in-depth interview talking about a lot of the old school stuff, and really, I think you guys will enjoy that. In addition, I am going to try to link up with Brooke from Relaxed Atmosphere, Florida. Brooke will share some updates with everyone, and hopefully we can run that audio this week after I wrap my audio. So we do, as of right now, we have a jam-packed agenda. We're looking forward to getting this content to you guys and to all the awesome ladies out there. The episode 317 overview brought to you by our family at Hammered Weekend Wear. You heard that right, HAMMERD, weekendwear.com. Hit them up. They did have some great Black Friday sales, so thanks to the team over there for shouting us out. But we would encourage you to go out there and check out what they've got going on. They also have under products, we'll talk more about this probably next week, they have the subscriptions. And what is the subscription? Well, I've said this before, you can actually save money. Although the costs of everything has went up, you can save money if you're one of these guys or ladies that are buying these shirts like we are every single run, couple of them at a time. You can do the t-shirt subscription, and you'll get all of those automatically sent to you based upon the size that you picked. You can do the shirt, the hoodie, or the banner subscription. So more to come. Maybe we'll link up with the team over there at Hammered Weekend Wear, and we'll talk about that maybe next week more in depth. The last episode recap. So thanks again to Daryl Poe from Extreme Lows for linking us up with Tim Williams. Tim worked at the Drop Shop where Jody Hall, of course, spearheaded that in company. He was the owner of the company. They body dropped a lot of stuff. And it might possibly be the closest that we'll get to doing any audio with Jody Hall. I know the folks over, our kinfolk over at Lowest Common Denominator, also known as LCD Podcast, they know Jody. That's a rich history in that region. So certainly, if there's ever audio, if Jody ever agrees to it, I'd love to hear it over on Lowest Common Denominator. But when Daryl hit us up and said, yo, I'd like to get Tim on the podcast. We were able to schedule that in, figure out a date, and it worked out really well. Got great feedback on that. So if you haven't, go back and listen to 316. And, I don't harp on the numbers too much. I just try to say go back and listen to the episode that is titled the Drop Shop Connection with Tim Williams. So check that one out. If you're new here listening, you can just go back after this episode, and I think it'll roll into that episode depending on what app you're using. But last episode recap brought to you by Lone Star Throwdown. You've heard us say this before. The biggest, baddest truck show possibly in the galaxy is Lone Star Throwdown. Short is LST. We're going to be out there in Conroe, Texas. At the time of this recording, we're about 85 days away. The registrations are sold out, but you can come in as a spectator, support the scene, buy a show shirt, buy some merch, and really show up and show out February 24th, 25th, 26th. It's out there in Conroe. And again, if you're looking for the address and things like that, once you touch down or drive into town, you can find more on Facebook, of course, with the address. So the general updates, I like to kind of cover just generally what's going on. And I had hinted that HBO had launched, I think the whole conglomerate, I think Warner Brothers, and there was like all these different, media brands that kind of came together and studios and stuff. And now when you go into HBO, you see like all this Warner Brother content, and A Christmas Story Christmas launched basically, I think it was maybe the Wednesday before Thanksgiving week, so they strategically had it out there, kind of knowing people are going to be on vacation. They want to get the hype. They basically want you to subscribe to HBO Max. And we, having that subscription, we were able to watch it, and we really enjoyed A Christmas Story Christmas. And recently I kind of talked about, if you didn't know, of course, 39 years ago, so back in 83, the original came out. Now, about 10 years ago, they actually did a sequel, and I watched it, and I think most of us agree it just didn't hit the mark. It's one of those sequels that you just kind of cringe. You look at it on IMDb. The sequel that they did, again, 10 years ago, kind of early 2010s-ish, that one just, again, didn't hit the mark, and that the ratings reflected on IMDb. This one, rather, Warner Brothers probably realizes, hey, there's a huge franchise, there's a huge cult following of that movie. Many of us love it. It was part of our childhood. And they came back and they did like what I refer to as kind of a real sequel. And if you have an opportunity to check it out, however you stream stuff, whether it's HBO or you find other methods, I would say certainly check it out. My thing is, it did seem a little bit slow in the beginning, kind of the lead up, and I kind of was like, okay, it's kind of a little slow, so I'm just keeping it real with you guys. But it does have a good payoff. I think the end, and how it pulls things together, it really makes a lot of sense. So we had a good time watching it. It's one that I would go back and watch. I think the original is like one that you just go, yo, man, it's an all-time classic. Now, I say that, I don't know if Mike Murray, wherever the hell he's at, I don't know if he's ever seen it. I mean, could you imagine, just for a moment, that Miggity Mike the Mayor possibly, we'd have to get confirmation maybe next week, that maybe he's never seen the original. I mean, he may not even understand some of the catchphrases, like you could shoot your eye out, kid, and things like that. So we'll have to ask Mike, and we'll have to get the real story. But it was pretty cool to go down memory lane with that one, and I would certainly encourage people. I would recommend it. I don't leave ratings on IMDb very often, but I did this time, and I think I gave it a solid. I want to say we gave it an 8. I asked my wife, I go, yo, what would you rate that? And she said, for nostalgia and everything, 8. Solid 8. There's a lot of 10 ratings on there. I think it got people by the nostalgia. So again, it's called A Christmas Story Christmas, so a little play off the original. It's got some of the original actors you can imagine, the mom, the dad. They have, I know the dad had passed away that played in the movie, and then the mom maybe had too as well. But again, check it out. Let me know what you guys think. The other general update is I got to thank Tim Gilbert, NC Florida. he had hit me up a couple weeks ago, and he goes, "Yo, did you realize?" And normally I've got stuff on the radar. Like I'll look at dates like out 6 weeks, or I'll have stuff in my phone that'll be like, "Yo, do 1, 2, 3 on said day." But it kind of escaped me that Michael Jackson Thriller, that album dropped 40 years ago today, the day of this recording, on 11/30 of 1982. It's crazy if you look at the album. It only has 9 tracks on it, but there's, depending on where you look, I mean, it sold over 70 million albums. It sold. Some sources will tell you 100 million worldwide. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's the number 2 selling album in the good old US of A. And we'll talk about in the future what number 1 is. But the crazy thing is, I think the RIAA, the Recording Institute, blah, 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 of America, they, I think, have it as like 31 times platinum. So you would think, well, if it sold 70 million, why is it just not 70 times platinum? Because to get platinum, which Mike, I don't know if Mike's going to go platinum with the Gallivanting Man. He's got his debut album he's supposedly working on. I'm thinking he might go wood. You know what I mean? And I don't even know how many. That could be like 10. We'd have to get the Airhead Nation behind Mike if he ever drops his album. But getting back to Michael Jackson Thriller, it is certified like 31 times platinum, which again is just insane. You'll never, ever, ever see numbers like that again. I would have said that 10 years ago. It's just albums don't sell like they used to because we're in the streaming industry. Things are like, how many streams did you have? But when you look at albums like Thriller, there'll never be anything close to that. It was just a different era. It was going out and buying the LPs and whatnot. So, is escaping me right now. There was one of our listeners, and I hope that he'll message me. He had given me the cassette tape, and that came through Casey Carruthers at EBGD earlier this year. I had missed the homie, I think, at a show, and then somehow Casey got it. And Casey's like, "Yo, I'm trafficking some contraband across state lines." I go, "Is it the good stuff? Is Hank involved?" He goes, "No, it has something to do with music." And I was like, "Oh, damn, okay." And then sure enough, biggity boom, he gives me the contraband at EBGD this past January in the freezing cold, no doubt. And it was the Michael Jackson Thriller cassette. So I added that one to the collection. I had it on vinyl, a rare promotional copy, an original copy on vinyl, and then a CD compact disc, which I have was like the 25th, I think, anniversary or something like that. I kind of had a couple extra bonus things I threw on it, but whatever. Just a classic album. And when I listen to it and when I think of it, I think of the Billie Jean video. I remember as a child watching the old little square TV at my parents'. We were lucky to have cable, and just seeing the floor light up and the newspapers kind of flowing by there, and it just was a different era. So again, that's my general updates for this week. Check out A Christmas Story Christmas. Speaking of general updates, thank you so much to Joey at Get Decked. We've told you time and time again, if you want to put a photo of a car or truck on a skate deck, hit up Joey at Get Decked. Go on Instagram and type in Get Decked. You'll see Get_Decked VA. That's Joey Dilworth. He's also on Facebook, Dilworth, just how it sounds with one L. Hit him up if you're a show promoter, or maybe you want to do some awards. Maybe you're not using our family Welch at Welch's Chop Shop, the Metal Awards, which we love, and maybe you want to do like maybe a top 5 or top 10 best of. Get with Joey at Get Decked, and he'll get you squared away. We just put in a huge order, and I got to thank those that waited a while for the Mini Truckin old school logos. Those are going to ship out by the time you guys hear this, and he restocked us, and because of our Black Friday and our Cyber Monday, or we did Cyber Tuesday, I think we got rid of almost all of them, which I just can't even believe. So those are going to ship out early next week. By the time they get here, Miggity Mike, the Mayor, and Shannon will ship them out. So again, huge shout out to Joey at Get Decked. Next, I'm going to throw this one in there. Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, Hut, Old Dirty Ballard, live and uncut. You got it, Matt Middleton. Old Dirty Ballard, live and uncut. I haven't done one of these in a while, and we're going to have to pick up a sponsor for the ODB Live and Uncut. This one's simple. It's the holiday season, and I'm telling you right now, people are scamming at an all all-time high. So please, everyone, before you just, I've done this before too, someone follows you, maybe you just blindly follow them back, you're like, oh, they got some cool shit. Please look at their profile. I'm seeing all sorts of people following these effing scammers, and it freaking frustrates me beyond words, okay? These scammers, lately, what they're doing on Instagram is you look at their bio, it's all caps, okay? Every word in their bio is caps. I don't know what the F they're on, but that's what they do. They message you asking, can I do a cartoon of your car? And it's like, we call those renderings here, okay? A lot of these folks, it's no slight against any nationality. A lot of these guys are scammers overseas. I can tell based upon how they interact. And they comment. You'll see it all the time on celebrity Instagram accounts and stuff. Like if you look at the comments, all the spam, they just get so much of it. And there's always a guy in all caps, I make a cartoon of your car, message me. Dude, they're wide open right there in the open. They do it. They'll direct message you. Hey, and what they're trying to do, and I'm sure they're hitting up the dudes and the ladies, and they're trying to say, hey, please, I'll do a cartoon of your car. Send me $25 or $50. I'll do it now. PayPal, friends and family. Listen, public service announcement. I've said this before. Most of us, when you pull up to a stoplight and you see someone that's begging for money, if you're feeling good, you might give a little bit. But most of us probably don't just blindly give money to people that we don't even know, for the most part, right? Unless it's something like maybe through GoFundMe or whatever. But if somebody just knocked on your door and said, hey, could you give me $25? I mean, unless it was Hank Norris, I don't know that I would. Maybe Mike. Probably not. But, if somebody just knocked on your door, would you just give them money? Why would you just direct message and send someone $25 because they've got you hooked into doing a cartoon of your car, okay? What they're doing is if you look at their photos, they're screenshotting everything, okay? You scroll down, they usually get like 30, 40 photos. They kind of keep it like at this low number so that helps the algorithm so they can build their account more. They're constantly low numbers. And you scroll to the beginning, the first 5 look like really shitty artwork, okay? Then from there on out, it's almost all graphic disorder. They've screenshotted everything. It's OLP, it's Southeast Mini Truck and Nats, it's Garage Gear Clothing, it's Mini Truck Scene, it's Scraping the Coast. It's all of these brands, okay? Pass the word on. Tell your kids, tell your husband, tell your wife. Don't just send money to these people, and especially it's happening in the Lincoln world with parts, okay? And I'll do an episode on that in the future on my Lincoln podcast. But there's guys that are going, oh man, I got, do you need any parts for your car? Oh yeah, I need a bumper end for my '64 Lincoln. Oh, I got one. Send me $250. I'll ship it right now. Send it now. Oh, friends and family. Boom, they hook you in. And what they do is when it's friends and family, or I don't use Venmo and Cash App and all those other ones, but I know like if you send it a certain way, there's no recourse. Okay, that's the way PayPal works. It's like, look, if you're avoiding paying this fee and we're not making money, we're not giving you any recourse on backing out of this thing. It's on you, right? So again, I know some of you guys are probably like, let it go, but I'm telling you, it is frustrating, and we report these accounts, and Instagram just does not. Facebook, Meta, not a fan of the company, although I do use Instagram. They just do not care. They don't do anything about it. They don't shut them out. A lot of times when you report the account, you have to say, okay, well, who is it impersonating? Well, it's not me. It's kind of like, okay, they're impersonating graphic disorder. We love graphic disorder. But then it makes you search, and you can't pick graphic disorder. So then, when sometimes, rarely, you'll get a message, and it's like, we've done a review, and we've found no illegal stuff, It's like, yeah, because they're probably not looking in the DMs to go, yeah, they're scamming the F out of people. So again, my word of wisdom, ODB Live in a Cut, do not send money to people. Take a look at these profiles. If you see all caps, or you scroll down and you're like, man, they got an OLP shirt? Is OLP using cartoon artist for their artwork? No. I mean, who would use a company that's like cartoon artist or some shit with all caps? It's like, come on, man. They're scamming the hell out of people. And the reason why they keep doing it is the same reason the robocallers keep doing it. They're making tens of thousands of dollars a month, and they're not doing anything but ripping people off. So, Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, Hut, Old Dirty Ballard, live and uncut. That's my word of wisdom for you this week. Okay, next, because Miggity Mike the Mayor is out, I'm going to ask you guys. I got one question for you. Are you ready?
Now it's time to get serious.
So here's the question. We're keeping it holiday themed. I know you guys are going to be like, damn, another Home Alone. But who wrote Home Alone? Okay, we know it was directed by Chris Columbus. Chris Columbus wrote The Goonies. Okay, he was a young screenwriter. He goes on 10 years later, give or take, and he directs Home Alone. But who wrote Home Alone? Okay, I'm going to give you that answer, right? So I know you don't have to think much into it. Who wrote Home Alone? That was John Hughes. Okay, rest in peace, John Hughes. So here's the real trivia question. What other popular movies did John Hughes write? Okay, there's 4 that I can think of like instant classics. We'll talk about those next week, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the Easter eggs that are a part of all of the John Hughes films. So most of what he was a part of, there's different Easter eggs throughout them. Some of them they're tough ones to kind of find, but a lot of his movies took place in or around the Chicagoland area, and that was one of the things that he always did. So the question is, what other popular movies did John Hughes write? And of course, John Hughes did write Home Alone. So we'll check with you guys next week on that one. The trivia with Mike is brought to you by AccuAir. We've told you time and time again, AccuAir is possibly the greatest in the history of air management. So it's the greatest air management in the history of air management. Visit AccuAir.com. The cool thing is they've continued to stair step up with all of their products. So the good thing is if you've got an older setup, kind of like I did, I had the VU4, but you wanted to upgrade it and you want to maybe add the sensors or you want to add the ECU Plus so you can control the air suspension from your phone, yes, Android or iPhone, you can do that, and all of their parts, for the most part, are kind of plug and play. Again, you can stair step up from the older stuff. AccuAir.com. Okay, next we got the scene updates. A couple out there. We had Daryl Poe on recently, and he mentioned working on Nikki, his better half, working on the Isuzu. Man, they're killing it. Dude, I wish Daryl lived down here. I'd be like, yo, man, can you teach me? Can you learn me some stuff, man? I love that they're out there doing the damn thing, using the bead roller, tagging Jamie Jordan and Mittler Brothers and Rose Metal Works. They're just doing the damn thing. So I love seeing it, and I can't wait to see the truck out at a show. A lot of kinfolk was at the Houston Autorama. I didn't really talk about this one. It wasn't really on our radar, but Eddie Gordy, congratulations, dude, on some of the awards you pulled in. You start talking about all of that stuff that you've done on that truck, and without the professional help, so to speak, dude, I think you're a professional, and you're doing all your own stuff, and I give you a tip of the cap, man. I mean, it is insane. So much love and respect for all that you're doing there with that badass truck. And let's not forget Macy Gray. She's out there. I mean, let's be honest. She's really doing the dang work, so we know that. Rob Rodell was out there as well. He posted a couple of photo dumps, so shout out to Rob and all those that made it. I tell you what, I know Radar and Lonnie and those guys were out there. They were killing it. And, God, I wish I lived closer to H-Town. You know what I'm saying? I get some H-Town on my cup. Then I go over there to the Houston Autorama and get crazy with Hank Norris. It just didn't work out. But maybe one of these years I'll make it. A lot of kinfolk was at Jimmy's Rod and Customs after the Turkey Rod Run. So it's another thing. I actually fell back a little bit last week in a good way. So Wednesday was kind of slow at work. I was able to do some things I needed to. Thursday, Friday was Thanksgiving. The day after, we started doing decoration stuff, cleaning, doing some, rearranging of the shed and everything. So when it came, I went to bed Friday and I was like, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do the normal routine I generally have where I drive over, do the speedway, then peel out of there, go to Jimmy's. And I just woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do more house shit. I was getting stuff done. I was chilling outside, had a cold drink. Everything was good. And I was like, you know what? I just feel like, hey, I'm gonna fall back. So I feel like I did miss out heavily on the Jimmy's Rod and Customs open house. So Big Juice and You Ain't Low and all those guys, they're doing the damn thing. I did touch base with Jimmy and I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I hope you guys have a good open house. And I want to give a huge shout out. Bryce Schulman, he had posted Miss Amanda's new paint job, and it was a S10 Sonoma. And I want to give credit to our friend Joe Sand. Okay, so Joe is in Tampa. Okay, Joe is on Instagram as custom KUSTOM rods. So KU, if I can spell this, KUSTOM RODS, custom rods. So boom, that's Joe Sand. Joe painted this truck that Bryce posted. Okay, so it's really cool. It kind of has just a badass 90s feel to it. It's a black truck, I think, and it has the graphics like on the lower door over to the bedside, and it just looks badass. So Bryce Schulman posted it up, and he said, Miss Amanda, new paint job is awesome. And Amanda Rose says, thanks, kiddo. So pretty cool stuff. You know, the Schulmans, they're always out there supporting events, whether it be in Florida, having people over, giving people rides and crew cut, just doing the damn thing. So tip of the cap to them. But now Bryce. Dude, Bryce is going to be like the future media guy out there, man. Mike and I better watch out because I know he's building up something next, and we're super stoked to always see you guys doing the dang thing. Jeff Kissick, man, again, I kick myself for not going to the Turkey Rod Run, but I had a good weekend with the fam. He had shared photos of the Geo, dare I say, Geo Tracker. This thing is insane, the Never Enough with the crazy engine setup on it, the orange deal. That was out there at the Turkey Rod Run, as was Shane. So Shane, that is good friends with Jimmy, he was out there. And I saw Rich, so shout out to Rich. Sorry I missed you, big homie. Saw you guys out there. Tony sent me a couple photos as well, and it was cool to see everybody out there. So I know I'm not remembering everyone. I know Dallas was out there. I told Dallas I was going to try to make it. I didn't. Just so many good people. So that was pretty cool. Those are the scene updates for this week, brought to you by Garage Gear Clothing. GarageGearClothing.com offers free shipping in the US of A. Hit them up. It definitely comes in very handy if you're trying to save a little bit of money, but hook someone up with a gift they really want. Whether it's a sport truck, mini truck, full size, dually, you name it. They even have a muscle car on a shirt. GarageGearClothing.com. Let them know by adding to the notes that OLP sent you. Crystal and team, I guarantee they'll take care of you some way, somehow. All right, key show updates. So this weekend, if I remember correctly, we got 2 shows. We got Turkey Drag, and we have Severed in the Southwest. So I wanted to really plug these shows. Turkey Drag is on the OLP official digital show calendar, and for some reason, I don't think I added Severed in the Southwest, so I'll do that now. But Turkey Drag, you can find them on Instagram at Turkey Drag, and the website, turkeydrag.com. Find them out in Texas, and then, of course, again, you have Severed in the Southwest, which is in Arizona. Many of you guys know these 2 shows. They've been around a very long time. I think Severed in the Southwest is technically one of the longest-running car and truck shows in the state of Arizona. So big shout out to my Severed fam, Matt, Billet fan, Rich Arachi, Joe, all the OGs. Have a good weekend out there, and hopefully it doesn't get too chilly, because I tell you what, when we went in 2013, them temps dropped overnight into the early morning. Next, we got the podcast update. So really all I was going to share is if you're listening to us through a podcast app, please leave a 5-star rating. It really helps us. In addition, go on our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, watch some of the videos. We're trying to get to 4,000 hours watched so we can monetize. And that's so that YouTube doesn't get all of our money, right? The few pennies that would come in, it would allow us to monetize. So check us out on YouTube. And if you want to buy some merch, go to ourlifestylepodcast.com. Within a couple weeks, I would say it's going to get down to the point that I'd say mid-December, you're going to want to order if you want to get stuff for Christmas. We got plenty of stuff. We got maybe a couple skate decks, maybe a couple of aluminum signs, but visit ourlifestylepodcast.com to get the official OLP merch. And remember, we are your mini truckin' headquarters. The podcast update is brought to you by Graphics Mafia. If you are a brand and you're looking for stickers, maybe a little bit of design work, hit up Buddy and Ryan. It's Graphics Mafia. GRAPHIX Mafia.com, and let them know that OLP sent you. And lastly, we have the Airhead Nation update, so I'll cover a couple of these, and then we are out potentially to run Brooks Audio And if not, then we'll jump right into Steve's audio. So first up, we got It's Official. This was Emily Moss and Chad Moss. I know they're out there doing the dang thing with their awesome show, but this one was a new house that they purchased, so we're so happy for you guys. Congratulations. Let's link up next year and talk more about you guys' show, Laying at the Lake. Lonnie Ford had posted hearing of a loss of Shannon Buzek, B-U-Z-E-K. He brought back a lot of memories, Lonnie said, and he shared a lot of classic photos, and really sad. We're still continuing to lose people, whether it be from old age or sickness or, anything for any reason. I actually today got a phone call from someone that asked me to go do a wellness check on somebody that I didn't know, and I said, sure, I'll go do it. They're 25 minutes from my house. I'll be happy to, and I was getting ready to leave, and my friend Chris called, Chris Dunn, that owns Lincoln Land, and he says, hey, Jay, don't worry about going. We appreciate you offering or accepting to go, but my friend went ahead and called the fire department. She hasn't talked to her dad in a couple days, and we're kind of worried, and I'm almost thankful I didn't have to go because he was pretty certain she couldn't get a hold of her dad, and he texted me a little bit later in the day, and he said, hey, the fire department went in, and he passed away in his house. And I just thought, damn, man, like I have a hard time with that kind of stuff. So, again, the moral of the story is we're losing a lot of people. We got to be thankful for each day. And, to the friends that we've lost, we certainly, it doesn't get easier. Speaking of that, James Crusenberry, good dude, he posted the other day, it's been 7 years since he lost his wife, and her name was Terry. We've said this in the past. Again, rest in peace. And I know he's just a great guy. Love seeing him at shows. A lot of fun. And we're, again, sorry for your loss. I also saw Bob Grant. He mentioned that his little brother Rob had passed away. Rest in peace. I never met him, but certainly they can't be easy around the holidays. That's for sure. And last but not least, I did see our big homie, Brian Nelson. He said, hey, everyone, please pray for my wife and her family. They could really use it right now. I know Donna Gurley, always love seeing Donna Gurley Nelson at shows. Again, a ball of joy, great people. Hopefully everything works out to him, to Brian and Donna. We're hoping for the best for you guys. The Airhead Nation updates was brought to you by CNS Metalworks. It's cs-metalworks.com. You can get out there. You can order some merchandise. You can give Chris a call if you need Universal Air or some AccuAir, or you're kind of on the fence about what you need. Chris has got great customer service. He ordered some parts for me that fell under the umbrella of my Lincoln, and I'm certainly appreciative of him doing that. But again, cs-metalworks.com, also CS Metalworks on Instagram for more information. With that being said, I tried to keep it shorter. We're going to roll in now. If we link up with Brooke, we'll run that audio. We'll chat with her for a little bit, and if not, then we'll roll into the audio for Steve Butts, NC Hop Scene on Instagram. Thanks so much, Steve. You did great. We appreciate you, all the NC members, everyone that supports us. Thank you guys so much. Stay on the rise, and we'll hit you guys next week, Lord willing, with another episode. We'll keep the streak going, possibly for a couple more weeks. We are chia. Peace. All right, so Brooke and I were not able to link up this week. Went a little bit long with some other interviews, and we're going to link up and hopefully have that audio next week. Enjoy this interview where I get a chance to sit down with Steve Butts, great guy, and also I want to thank everyone for the support. This interview is brought to you by the West Coast Influence. If you haven't already added one of these to your collection, go to minitruckfilm.com. You heard that right, minitruckfilm.com. It's the holiday season. These are great stocking stuffers, or get it for your significant other. It's a good one to add to your collection. They got the Blu-ray, they got the DVD. It's your choice. Oh, by the way, they do have a couple of custom die casts available. Hit up minitruckfilm.com and pick up a copy today of the West Coast Influence. Yo, so like I said earlier in the podcast, super excited to sit down with Steve Butts, man. Dude, thank you so much. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good, Jason. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, no doubt.
I'm excited.
No doubt about it, man. I know it's so cool, this, trip that we go on with the podcast. We meet different people, and then there's good kinfolk like you that, send some photos, and then next thing you know, we go, yo, man, we should have you on or whatnot, and it's like, boom, we make it happen.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this: like, can you, Steve Butts, can you give us a little bit of background, for the listeners about yourself, maybe where you grew up and kind of who you are?
Yeah. Again, my name's Steve. I grew up out in San Diego in the East County area, little known town called Santee, California. And I kind of got into mini trucking kind of by accident, really. I was, typical kid growing up, 12 years old, started getting into cars. I didn't have it's funny, my dad, a lot of people have, their fathers are big into cars, but my dad wasn't. He was in the Navy and just kind of one of those things. I don't know. I gravitated toward it, typical, BMX kid. And then I getting older and I'm like, cars are cool. So I started checking out all the magazines, Street Rodder, Hot Rod, the typical, that was out there at the time. And I don't know. I started drawing cars was big on me. Cartoons Magazine. You probably know what that is. That was huge back then. And I had a couple friends that were kind of into it too. And when high school came around, that was the time I was like, well, I kind of want to start learning how to work on cars. So I took auto shop class and was fortunate enough to be able to get in for like 3 full years of auto shop in high school, which is pretty rare.
Yes.
And I met a lot of people that had a great teacher there and learned a lot. And then right at the end, I graduated in 87, and right before in my senior year, I had a couple of friends that had a mini truck, and he just slammed. Typical the old like 80s Ford Courier, the little square thing. Had pulled the coils out, flipped the leaf springs, rode like ass, but it was the coolest looking thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, holy crap, that thing is cool. And what was funny is my first car was a 1966 Chevy Nova 2-door hardtop.
Wow.
That I paid $500 for during my sophomore year of high school, I think it was. I barely ran. I barely got it home. My dad dropped me off. We picked it up, and he followed me home, pulled the engine out, rebuilt it in auto shop. It was just a 6-cylinder.
Damn.
But it was a cool car. I lowered the front end, cut the coils, drove it through high school. But then I saw this mini truck, and I'm thinking, that thing is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's pretty neat. And then I ended up going to a Matters None meeting, which was one of the big local clubs in that area.
Okay.
And that's where I met Alan Paradise, which you had on your show not too long ago.
Yep.
So he was the president of the club, and and I was like, man, his Isuzu was just super cool. And that really that was probably one of the biggest things. When I saw that truck, I was like, I got to do a mini truck. That thing is badass. The graphics in it, all the Rob Taylor graphics, the stance and everything. I'm thinking, man, that looks like fun. And all the people were super cool. And that was just a big draw for me. So I graduated high school, went to work at a dealership. And within weeks, I was like, sold a Nova, found a Nissan truck that was actually on our used car lot that I was working at. It got a year-old Nissan 720 for $5,000.
Wow, dude.
It was a year old. It was an 87. I take that back. It was an 86 Nissan 720. So it was the last year of the body style. I bought it in 87.
Oh,
so it was
that's
a year
right.
old.
Yeah, because I posted a photo that Alan or someone had shared of it.
Yes. Yep. It was us heading up to I think we were heading up to the Southern California Mini Truck Council meeting at the time. Is where we were headed on a little cruise. Yeah, we had stopped off for just a little bite to eat or something like that. And both our trucks are sitting next to each other. But I bought this truck, man, and 2 days later, my dad's like, what are you doing? Well, I'm lowering it. What are you doing? And, I had a set of aluminum lowering blocks. I bought it at, I think, I can't remember if I got those at Pep Boys or Super Shops. One of those two.
There you go.
Now that they're, the Super Shops have been defunct for quite a few years. But so lowering blocks. And, no internet at the time. We're trying to figure out. So I'm like looking underneath. How do I lower this thing? And I heard about torsion bars, and I checked around and figured it out kind of on my own. I'm like, well, it looks like this is what we do. So got out the wrenches and lowered the front end, down with the torsion bars, drove it around like that. And my neighbor worked on a lot of Volkswagens and older Mercedes cars. And I said, Mercedes hubcaps at the time were pretty popular. The 14-inch hubcaps.
Really?
And I was like, hey, you got any of those hubcaps? And he had a car sitting there that had some. He goes, I might have an extra set. And so he finds an extra set, in his junk piles of stuff. He goes, yeah, you want these? I'm like, sure. Got those out, he had a buffer. I went through and buffed them all out, polished them, snapped them on the truck, and went to my first Matters None meeting.
Dude,
and then,
those were simpler days, weren't they, Steve?
Oh my God, so simple, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a painted on logo at Rob Taylor's, paint shop. And, the typical back then, blue and pink was popular. So my truck was blue and the blue and pink logo on it. Kind of just snowballed from there, little by little. Lower profile tires, make the truck a little lower. And then I'm at super shops and I'm like, those 14-inch wheels look really good, and got some aluminum, Eagle 14-inch wheels or something like that.
Yep.
Multi-holes. They got a bunch of little small holes in it, and just completely changed the look of the truck. And then, then back to Rob Taylor's, go get some candy magenta and candy oriental blue stripes painted on it, and wings were big at the time too. And go out and find a Pontiac Firebird wing.
Yeah,
and,
I remember seeing that on your truck.
Make your own hard tonneau cover out of plywood and some angle iron.
Yep.
And cover it in a little bit of thin foam and some black vinyl you pick up at a upholstery surplus place, and there you go. You got a smooth, flush-fitting tonneau cover.
Take off the rear bumper.
Wing to it. Yeah. Mine, and in fact, back then, those little Nissans didn't come with bumpers on them. The 720s, a lot of them. So mine didn't even have a bumper on it. Mine had the factory, just the roll pan in the back. So.
Yeah, could you imagine getting pulled over, the officer going, "Hey, where's your rear bumper?" And you're like, "It's a factory truck."
Yeah. In fact, it had little rubber. Like I remember, it had little rubber square rectangles on the each corner, like either right on the edges, and it was just like that was the black bumpers. Little things. It was weird, but vinyl interior, 5-speed transmission, no air conditioning. No carpet on the floor. It had rubber floors.
That's the way my 94 S10 was. Yeah, basic.
Yeah, super basic. And eventually I changed that. I found a local interior shop and dropped the truck off, and guys spent 2 days on it and upholstered the seat, and some nice cloth, two-tone blue and gray cloth, laid some carpet in instead of the rubber floor mats. Took the vinyl door panels and roll up, manual windows. When's the last time you saw manual windows or anything?
Not these days.
And made a simple panel on the sides, put upholstery on them, and I ended up having a stereo in there eventually, and ended up with had a local stereo shop that did a lot of good stuff, and they ended up I had 4 Serwin Vega 8s.
Oh wow!
Behind the seat,
dude, you had the CVs, bro.
Yeah, Serwin Vega 8s had the Hyphonics amp, had just a single 200-watt Hyphonics amp, and then I had MV Court separates with like passive crossovers, and typical Alpine CD player like everybody had back in the day. And if you didn't have an Alpine,
right?
So
the green numbers and all that.
Yeah, it had and the Grant GT steering wheel.
Oh yeah,
with the huge 3-spoke Grant GT wheel I had on it.
You could even get the billet hubs and all the little parts you needed right at the local parts store.
Yeah. So and and it was a nice truck. Drove that thing forever, and and at some point I was in Matters None for a year, almost 2 years, I think, and then things were changing, and then I met Courtney at that time, around 88. I met Courtney.
Oh wow!
Started hanging out with him, and I was like, I'm like, now this guy, this guy's my speed, we ended up just hanging out a lot, and he has that, and most people that know him, he has that persona that just draws you to him, and you just, you want to be around him because he's just so much fun, and everything. And if you meet his mom, Maggie, at all, if you've ever met her in person or talked to her, you see where he gets it from, because she's just like him.
Yeah.
To me, at least to me, she's just like him, or it was just like her, however you want to look at it. But he was just such an awesome person to be around, and I ended up switching clubs and ended up joining Class Act, which he was the president of.
Right before NC started.
Yeah, before NC started. So, I did that, and I had taught. And here's my Courtney story.
Okay.
And we're at his house. It was while he was still living down in Santee. Didn't live too far from me. We hung out a lot for a couple of years, and we were over at his house one time, and I was talking about wanting to take the stripes off my truck and maybe shaving the doors and start doing some stuff to it. And he goes, "Oh yeah, let's do it." I'm like, "Man, I don't know, not sure I'm ready for that yet. I really don't have the money to do it,
Right.
Don't know how to do stuff, I was green at it. I didn't really, I did the mechanical stuff, but I'd never done paint or body work or anything like that. And, he'd been already, that's when his truck had already started getting, it was in primer, and he had stripped it and stuff like that. And he goes, no, you can, and we can do that. And sitting in his driveway, I'm sitting there staring at my truck, and then he hands me the sander. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready. No, come on, And he takes the sander out of my hand, and then he just turns it on, and he just walks front to back down the side of my truck with the sander on the side of my truck, right across my stripes.
You're like, oh, shit.
I'm just looking at him going, shit, are you kidding me?
He's like, he called me. He was like, let's do it.
I think at the time I was 20 years old or something, and he's a couple years older than I am, and I was just like, dude, seriously.
You're like,
and
I wasn't ready.
He's laughing, he's cracking up, he's just laughing at me, and I'm like, dude, you suck. So then he's like, he walks back over, he hands it to me, looks at me, smile, big old his Courtney smile, hands it to me, hands the sander to me, goes, okay, there you go. Now you have to do it. I'm like, shit. Yeah. So I spent the rest of the afternoon sanding the whole truck down. And then he busts out a sprayer with a bunch of K200 primer in it, and we lay a whole thing of primer on the whole truck. Like, okay. Awesome. Well, I tell you what, my dad was pissed when I got home.
Well, only in Southern California, like down there, like true SoCal, could you meet like Alan Paradise and be friends with him, and then boom, Courtney. Obviously, everybody knows Santee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? Definitely want to talk more about those guys. But when you think about like growing up, even before, because, you started getting hooked in the trucks, 12, 13 years old, like, were you into BMX and riding and stuff? Because that stuff was like, to me in the 80s was huge, man.
Yeah, BMX was a pretty big part of my younger years for sure. And, I think I realized early on that, I didn't have the skill as much as I thought I did for it. But as far as like, I got into racing a little bit. It was the typical, Diamondback was the huge bike back then, Diamondback and Redline. And I really wanted a Diamondback. And I think when I was 12 or something, I got a Diamondback Silver Streak for Christmas.
Yes.
1 year. And I absolutely love it. Harry Leary was like the Diamondback guru back then, and I was just like, I couldn't, my parents couldn't afford the bike he had, the Pro model, which was all black chrome, and so I got the Silver Streak, which was the little lesser entry level model with the chrome and the black rims, but it was super dialed. I was super stoked to have it, for Christmas, and I got it. When I got it though for Christmas, I had a cast on my arm from falling out of a tree. And
wow!
It was just one of the it was like, man, that kind of sucks. But
you gotta wait a few weeks to ride it.
I drove that thing. I rode that thing all over town. I went to places my mom probably would die if she found out how far I actually rode my bike, and I've had a friend that used to go ride with me all the time, and he unfortunately he passed away years and years ago, and at a way too young age from an unfortunate shooting accident, and but we used to ride all over the place, man, and we'd see people like Dave Volker, out on just in the dirt jump areas, stuff like that. We knew all these hidden places where we could go and just watch people jump, and nowadays I still love watching it because I still wish I could, do that stuff. And I got a 26-inch Haro, dirt jumper right now, and I ride here and there, but I don't do anything. I'm 53 years old, and I'm not about to try and do that stuff again. If I had been keeping up all these years doing it, then okay, but we go to a local pump track. I take my 13-year-old over there, and we go ride the pump track and have a little fun, and or we go on bike rides, stuff like that. But just I look at some of those jumps they do now, and some of the
nitro circus stuff.
That too, and then like just the dirt jump stuff, like what they call like the line or whatever, where there's just a whole line of just huge jumps just going. And back then it was like one or two jumps, and you just ride back up to the start and you do the one jump again, and
right.
It was a lot. again, a lot simpler time, and you just made do,
Yeah, in that area, SoCal, when us over here, we were thinking, we'd look in the magazines and there was all the skate stuff going on and the Pal Peralta stuff. But like you said, down there, I think Dave Volker, I think he lived in San Diego. He was born there.
He actually lived where we did, out in like Santee or El Cajon area or
That's
Lakeside,
awesome.
which is that little East County area that a lot of us were around. We all lived out there. I mean, I met a lot of people there. I mean, there's a lot of guys at NC that still live down there that I met from the early years that we all hung out before NC. Jason Pang, I know Brian Jedra talked about him a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. I've known him, since around '89. He had a Nissan 720, and we used to roll together all the time. So it just, and then there's a couple other people, like I said, down there that are still down there. And, my truck, in fact, my daily driver was built by Jason.
Oh, wow.
So I got a 2-wheel drive, crew cab, GMC Silverado or Sierra on 35s, and he did all the suspension on it. And, and so it's my daily, fun thing. So
that's cool.
So he and we're connected to the hip for quite a while. We're both part Asian. So, it's kind of one of those things, and Brian told that story about, I think he said something about Jason's little issue out in Texas or something. I wasn't there for that, but that's kind of how Jason got his nickname, which is, I don't think Brian mentioned, which was Chum Lee. So that, I didn't say that, Jason. So
right.
I won't give away your secret. So
yeah, I know, right?
But,
could you ever imagine how, like, when you think about the bike stuff, right? Just to hit on that one more time, how much has come full circle, because so many of us were younger. I mean, the 70s guys, they like a lot of the Schwinn's and the big banana seats, and things changed late 80s, Mongoose, the Motomag wheels, and then, like you said, Diamondback, all these bike companies. But
Skyway wheels,
Skyway mags and stuff, and it just was like, it's crazy that there have been collectors for a long time, but the past 10, 15 years, all of us got to a certain age where we're like, you know what, I want to have a bike when I was a kid, or now, smart enough, the bike companies are launching the 20, like you said, the 24, 26s, the 29-inch bikes that look, like the old school bikes, and it's crazy how far it's come full circle.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've noticed like SE bikes is huge. All the Ripper bikes nowadays. They got the big Rippers, and they still got like the old PK Ripper and all that. Man, PK Ripper, I wanted one of those so bad when I was a kid.
Yep.
But those were high end, and I think we have a couple of guys in our clubs that are really big on the vintage BMX collectors.
Yes.
And they got like a garage full of them hanging there. See, I'm like, holy cow, they got tons of cash tied up in those things.
Yeah, it's an addiction. Crazy. It really is. I mean, it's like you can have. I know a couple guys. It's like they could. You could almost have 10 bikes or a couple of cars. I mean, it's just insane. But I do like too. We had Sean from Rad BMX Builds on, and one of the things that he definitely likes too is I like how there's been the companies like GT Bikes and stuff, like they're launching the 29-inch bikes and stuff, but they're doing it like in the retro kind of like the look and feel, because not everybody can spend a grip to get one of these old school bikes. And I mean, a lot of us, like, you get it and it's cool for the first day, then you're like, well, am I really gonna ride it? So then you're like, well, cool, I can put it in my truck and I can go to a show, and it does look badass. But to me, I think one of the big wins that we've all had is like, these pro performers, for instance, the 29-inch versions, and some of the prices I've seen have been, anywhere from $500 to $1,000, depending on the bike. But it is kind of crazy. But were there other things like in Santee, with car shows and stuff that you felt like you were going to at a young age, or did you just kind of see, with the high school connection that you were just like, dude, like maybe you saw that first mini truck and you're like, that's just what I want to do? Yeah,
there wasn't really a whole lot of, I didn't go to a whole lot of, in fact, I don't think I really went to any car shows pre-mini truck. I think the biggest, the most car show type thing I ever did was I was about 14 or so, and my friend and I would go ride our bikes on Friday nights. And there was an area, and Santee's about 3 times bigger than it used to be, but back then in the early mid 80s, around 84, 83, somewhere around there, there was a local, like a hamburger joint, just a mom and pop one that did Friday night cruises. And it was all the local people that came out with their, hot rods, 32 Fords, Mercs, 57 Chevys, and all that stuff. And I was big into old cars, pre-mini truck. I still am. I love old cars. If I could do one right now, I would do it in a heartbeat. But
Yep.
Now as a kid, that was what attracted me. I saw old cars, and like I said, I got Street Rodder magazine, Hot Rod magazine, Carcraft magazine, all those. And I still have them to this day. I've got some early 60s, Hot Rod and Rod and Custom magazines that the neighbor had stashed away in his shed in a box. And I was like, oh, look at these. Sweet. And I kept them all these years, and I got these back in the 80s, and they were already 20 years old when I got them.
Yep.
And I just loved old cars. So and I think mini trucking, what I like about mini trucking is I think it gave an outlet for people who didn't have a lot of money, younger people to come out and do their thing and, show their personalization and show something different to, be different than on the road than everybody else,
Yep.
without having to spend a ton of money. And my first truck was like that. I didn't spend a ton of money on it. Obviously a kid just out of high school, working just a basic full-time job, you're not making a ton of money. Of course, gas was 86 cents a gallon back then too.
Right.
But,
Different times.
But then again, you're only making, $5 an hour or something minimum wage, and it was, I just think it was a great gateway, I think, to get into, car customizing and a car culture that was at the time was super fun, and really kicked back, back then. So, I went to some shows. I went to shows with Matters Known with Alan, and had a great time. We went to, and I think my first run was actually Rezo 87.
Damn.
It was my very first truck run. And that was an amazing, I was just in awe. And I'm like, oh my God, look at all these freaking mini trucks everywhere, and it was just super, super cool to see. And it was out of Glen Helen out here, which was, north of us here, probably about an hour and a half north of here, of where I'm at. I live in Temecula now, which is about an hour north of where I grew up. But
okay.
But it was just amazing to see all these different trucks, and it was funny because they were all the same, but they were all different. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't a whole lot. It was weird because back then there wasn't a whole lot of choices for wheels. It was pretty standard. So then you see somebody with Porsche alloys. How the heck did they do that? They re-drill their hubs, or they found a way to make an adapter for them. And it's just seeing some of those stuff, out there just blew my mind. And that's when it just kind of snowballed from there, and just kept going, and just kept being into it. And
let me ask you this: when you said it earlier, and it made me think of this. When I post like lowered Lincolns, people are like, why do you like, the older, it's not always the older crowd, but generally it is like, why do you guys ruin these cars and this and all this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you were talking about earlier when you first saw the mini truck was like the same as me, the same as most of the listeners, I'm sure, that listen to this podcast. They like, you saw it and it was just like you were hooked, right? Or you rode in it, and it maybe you rode like shit, but you were just like, dude, like this is cool, right? Like, why do you think, like us as mini truckers, or you or me or whoever, like, why do we like the trucks lowered? Because some people bring up good points. They're like, man, it's useless. You can't put anything in it, this and that. And these guys with the brand new dualies, right? They're laying them out, and you're going, man, these are $80,000-$100,000 trucks.
Right.
Like, but it's something about the look, I think, that is just what gravitates us to it.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is that it's so different.
Yeah.
You don't. Even to this day still, here we are, it's, 40 years later, after, probably the first lowered mini truck, and they're still different, as much, even as often as it's done, at least in our scene, you see these things on the street, you don't really see them. So when it's laid out, you're like, that's pretty cool. That's totally different, you know?
Yep.
You see, you know, and I noticed it because I'm a car guy, but, you know, you see lowered Acuras, lowered Hondas, but do they really attract attention? You know, not really, you know, but you look at a truck and you see a truck low, you know, that's super low with big wheels on it. And more so if it's, like you said, if it's a dually or someone's got crazy paint on it and it catches your eye and you're like, what is that? You know, why would they, you know, and they might have that, why would they do that to that truck?
Right.
Because now it's not a truck anymore, but it caught your attention, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like for a while too, many truckers, you know, we got a lot of hate, like, you know, the trucks are so low and this, and, you know, we've talked about it and hinted on this podcast, but I do think there became a tipping point. You know, we talked about it with Brian Gendro, where like the hot rod guys were like, you know, again, not saying that they wouldn't have ever got to that point, but you started to see the hot rod guys that were like, okay, well, you know what? I can put these shock waves on my stuff, right? Oh, well, it's just kind of bolt in. Okay, cool. I can go lower. Yeah. And then it was like the bigger wheels. And it seemed like the mini truckers, although I guess some of the sport truck guys would maybe, you know, they would put their say into it and go, well, yeah, you know, Boyd and these guys were driving the wheels bigger and bigger and bigger. But, I mean, it got to a certain point where mini truckers were like, well, I'm going to put 20s on a truck that's like lane rocker, you know? Right. And it does seem like, you know, a lot of us are gravitated towards it because when you just see that truck, like you said, that's not manufactured to be on the ground, and you like the lines of an S10 or a Datsun or a 720, whatever, then you see it on the ground. It, to me, when it's just flat laid out with a nice set of wheels, it just gives it a whole different perspective. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. It's just something about it, you know, and you know, yeah, I'm on my. You know, I'm probably one of the few people, after all these years, I'm only starting on my third, I call it a mini truck, but it's not a mini truck. I have an OBS, like a 97 OBS I'm working on. Yep. You know, and here I am building another truck. You know, I'm 53 years old, you know, married for, you know, I've been married for 24 years, you know, and 13-year-old kid, and here I'm building a mini truck, you know, technically, you know. You know, I'm not going super big wheels on that, you know, and I was kind of over the years, I kind of almost, I wouldn't say called disappointed, but it was kind of looking at the scene. I'm like, man, like you mentioned just a few minutes ago, $100,000 trucks, putting 10 grand in just getting the suspension done, you know, not to mention then you got wheels, you know, and what some of these guys are putting 5-10 grand into wheels. I'm like, that is just outrageous money. You know, to build a truck, you know, even if you just build a regular, you know, and they're brand new, you know, Tacomas are, you know, you get a brand new Tacoma was, you know, $30,000 or whatever, you know, for an extra cab or crew cab or whatever. I'm like, dude, that's just out of range, you know, and I appreciate the fact that, you know, that a lot of these, that it seems like the tradition, not necessarily traditional, but a lot of people are realizing and going back to a simpler mini truck scene a little bit. You know, I notice a lot of the old school stuff kind of coming back. You see a lot of static drops on older mini trucks. Tilt beds. And then, you know, and I kind of, you know, I'm not a huge, I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of it, but at first I didn't understand it doing body drops with a static drop, but it makes sense to me when I look at it, you know, doing a body drop with a static, you know, suspension drop, because you still get that tucked wheel, but you don't have anything hanging down super low into the ground. So you have that look of being super hammered without your frame dragging the ground every 2 feet, you know, like we did back in the day. I mean, I remember driving my Nissan, having that thing just hammered to the ground, and I every 5 feet the thing's, you know, hits a bump, or I switch lanes, hit a reflector, right? You know, no airbags, no air shocks. We just drove as it is, you know. And things are starting to go back, I think, to the more simpler form, and you know, it's getting harder to find like a you know, like maybe an old school 17-inch wheel. You know, that stuff is like gold. Right. There's the different Facebook groups, and you know, the clear tail lights and the clear gauge or the white face gauges and all that stuff. It is real hot, and I think some of it has to do with, to your point, I talked to a buddy of mine that's been working on Lincolns like 40 years. You know, he's in the 60s. I talked to him earlier today, and, you know, he's talking about how, you know, he's got like an old 90s Ford pickup, and he just said, you know, one, I can't really afford a new vehicle, but he said, number two, he's like, I just like it because it's very simple, it's reliable, and it's kind of funny how sometimes you might go, man, I want a new vehicle, I want a new truck, I just want to be able to get in and drive. And it's like, sure, that will, for however long, that may be fine. But the newer cars are, they're harder to diagnose and fix and things like that. And I know some people work on those and they can do it easy, but to me, the simplicity is a big thing. And you look at the 88 to 98s, I mean, they're classic, pretty easy to work on. Sometimes the ACs, I know on mine, it was like always the compressor. It was like they would leak in the middle, and I was like, all right, we'll get this new style compressor and stuff. But, for the most part, the build aspect of it, like you said, you get the accessories, you lower them a little bit. But I think, too, it's the nostalgia for us,
Yeah. I love the OBSs, always have. And I finally, I was like, I started out looking for something like a crew cab or something, and I came across this 97. It was like 3 years ago I bought this truck. It only had 90,000 miles on it. Or 95,000 miles. It was pretty low mileage. It was lowered. Had a set of 20-inch mob steels on it already. But it wasn't lowered great. It rode okay. Had crappy turning radius because they had DJN lower arms on it that rubbed the wheels when you turn. It was not done right, but it was super clean. The interior is immaculate. It was like brand new interior. It was super good shape. So I ended up buying this truck, and it just had to sat for a couple of years. I haven't done anything to it. And then I finally broke down and started ordering a bunch of parts for it. And I'm quote unquote doing a budget build on this thing. I'm not paying somebody to do it. I do it all myself. I'm like that handyman. I know just enough of everything to do it all, myself. I've done paint, I've done body work, some of that stuff I learned from Genro, just working with them, over the years at different things, just kind of helping him out, here and there when he worked with me and Alex at our shop. And, and so I can do just about anything. I can weld a bit, I know some basic fabrication. So I bought an Infamous kit, got parts through Infamous rear kit from, I got it through Jason at Cam Mods, Jason Pang. And then he got me all my, AccuAir stuff I needed for it. So I've got AccuAir. So I call it a budget. Some of that stuff's a little on the expensive side, which I didn't think I was going to do. But I kept looking at how the AccuAir works. I'm thinking, I'm done with the days of having to wonder what height I'm sitting at.
So some creature comfort,
I wanted some creature comfort and some reliability and ease of just being like, okay, I know how other stuff works, but and I could have thrown it in super easy and super cheap, but I'm like, I'll be a little bit nicer with this thing. So, I got some tubular arms for it, and I've been working on it here and there. And I was trying to have it done for our 30th anniversary out in Oklahoma a few months back. And it just got to the point where I just was way too much work to do and couldn't get it done in time. And now I've decided, I'm like, it's going to stock floor body drop. So I got
a bunch of pills. I like where you're going now.
Yeah. So I got $300 worth of 2x4, material, steel tubing sitting in my yard, waiting to cut the frame up underneath it and stock floor it now. But
see, that's cool when you can do that stuff, because you can keep it, you can manage those costs, right, and do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It may take me a little longer, and I get my moments where I work on it a bunch, and then I get a lot of progress. Like the front's bagged and all done and everything. I just, the back, I've got most of it tacked into place, and I got to do some more work to it, but now it's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and body drop. So I got to pull the interior out. But yeah, I can manage the cost. I've been, picking up parts for like a year and a half before I started on it. So, it's kind of a nice if you can do it yourself and you have the abilities, or somebody that can help you do it. It's definitely worth taking the time, because it can definitely save you a ton of money, and spread that cost out over a longer period. It makes it a lot easier to do a build like that. But it'll be fun. I'm going to shave the doors on it. I've got a Grant roll pan waiting to put on the bed. I've got, I came across a good deal of some Cadillac DeVille taillights. I'm going to go old school in the back end. Have
super popular
Cadillac taillights in the back. I just got to figure out a grill. I really wanted a Phantom, but I can't find the one I want, and they're super expensive when you do. So I don't know if I'll do that. My S10 had a Phantom grill, and I love that thing, but I'd like to do it again. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that stuff.
But that's a fun build.
I was just going through some of the older magazines the other day, Street Trucks, old ad, and I thought to myself, if some of the companies could come back. I know there's a few making the billet grills and stuff, but like the Phantom grills and stuff, and I mean that stuff is really hot. And I'd like to remind the listeners, we're talking with Steve Butts. Go and search NC_HOPSING Hopsing, and you can scroll through some of the photos. We'll share some of them. It's the white OBS, the third door truck, right?
Yeah, it's a third door. Yeah.
On some Detroit steel wheel. We love them. Emma and the whole team over there. Those things are fresh. And I dig it, man. I dig kind of the mindset that you have. And it's funny how even back in the day, things would snowball. And kind of like with you, you're going, well, I'm going to bag it. Okay, well, it's bagged. Well, you know what? I'll throw some AccuAir. I'll lay it out. But you're gonna end up what you want with what you want. And I think the big thing is a lot of us kind of want maybe something now. We're at an age where we can afford a little bit more, and we want something maybe that, God, it would have been cool to have this back in, 88, 89, 90, when these trucks came out. So, you're doing it right. But let me ask you this. My understanding, and you mentioned it earlier, you were in business with Alex Anderson. Rest in peace to Alex. Alex who? Was that Brand X, and can you tell us a little bit about that? That
was Brand X Customs, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what year that was. I met Alex, around, I think it was 99, 2000, right in there. He'd moved to Temecula, was local in Temecula. I don't remember the club he was rolling, but he was rolling with a different club at the time, and we started hanging out a lot. He and I clicked pretty well. Him and his wife and my wife, got along pretty well, so we kind of started hanging out and talking, and we do truck stuff together, and he and I ended up going to a lot of shows together. And then somewhere along the line, I kind of, I don't know, we kind of talked about NC and stuff like that, and he knew Courtney and had talked to Courtney, and Courtney said, well, Steve's the rep in that area, go talk to Steve. So he's like, hey, Courtney told me to talk to you about joining in, about getting in. I'm like, well, you're in as far as I'm concerned, like whatever you want, And
yep.
I think back then it was a little bit different too. When it came to getting into the club, was a little bit different. And I got in '96 at Courtney prodding me for about 2.5 years of going, just when are you going to get out of that club? When are you going to get out of that club? When are you going to come over to NC? And I'm like, when I'm ready, dude. But
yep.
So that's another one of those stories. He bugged me all the time. I was in a local club out in this area that called Visual Perfection.
Okay.
And they were big in LA. And me and another friend of mine, Mike Bowles, had started the San Diego chapter, and we had done that for a while. And that was, in fact, that was in '94 when I bought my S10, and we started that club, and that S10 snowballed into Brian bagging the front end of it, and then bagging the rear of it like a month later, and another one of those things, project, a little bit at a time.
Right.
And, and I met my wife in '94 at the same time I got the truck, so she was involved in this whole thing. She's been a big part of this whole mini trucking scene over the years.
Very supportive, it sounds like, especially to be 24 years. Congrats.
Oh yeah. It'll be going on 30. We've been together. So, and
wow.
So yeah, she's been a huge a part of this whole thing, and supporter of all my craziness, and and last minute trips to Vegas for SEMA, and going to car shows and stuff like that, and holding NC Christmas parties at our house, and having 40 people over from California and Arizona, trying to cook food for everybody, and and in our house that we'd only lived in for like 3 weeks, or something, and it was just, we had some crazy times, but it's all been a lot of fun. And but back to Alex, we just he was doing some stuff. He was he had his own little thing selling airbag parts. He had all his stuff, was having it all like laser or plasma cut, and he had airbag brackets and all this stuff and shock mounts, and he was going around and selling them to different shops and stuff and all these kind of accounts. And I actually had gone to work for another former NC member that had passed away recently, Kane Morris, who owned the Hack Shack.
Yep.
Owned Hack Shack. So I went to work for Kane for a little bit when he had moved Hack Shack It's out here in California, so I was commuting up there, and Alex was coming in and was selling parts to him. And in fact, Alex is the one that actually introduced me to King, because I hadn't really met King before that.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got introduced then. And then, I don't know, it's just something after a while, it wasn't working out, there. And Alex, I was didn't really like driving all the way up. I was driving an hour and a half and going in traffic and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I really already tired of this, and Alex and I, he'd been kind of putting the bug in about, wanting to have a shop and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, that'd be kind of cool, And so we started doing stuff actually out of my garage.
Really?
We did it for a few months, we built, he got the clientele. We brought the stuff down to my house. We plugged a 220 welder into my dryer outlet in my garage.
Yep.
Had a compressor, we had some grinders, and we'd go to work, in the evenings. We'd work on stuff, on the weekends. And then he showed me, that guy showed me a lot on how the air system's installed. I knew a little bit, but he was like, he really knew how to just put it together really quick. And he really showed me a lot on that. And so we did that for a while. And then we ended up, we're like, well, do we want to do this? So we ended up finding a shop, and we opened the shop together and got us a lift and got us, had a little showroom, and I don't. Brian would probably fill us in on this one, because I don't remember what it was, but we ended up contracting him and having him come over, and he would do stuff for us. It was something that was a little bit more involved that Alex and I didn't feel like comfortable, taking on. Brian would come in and do it. It was like, he did a couple body drops there. And then, some of the other stuff, he had and this is when Brian came out with the reverse four-link, where all four bars were backwards. That trend got huge for a while there, and he was, he's like, oh, check this out, and we started doing that, and we did a couple of trucks there. One of them was, I don't know if you know, it was cover truck, mini truck and cover truck. Chris Call's Built to Drag.
Yes, that was one I was going to ask.
Blue and silver.
Yep.
Blue and silver flame Tacoma.
Built to Drag. I saw that at SEMA 03 when I went out there.
Yeah, we did that truck.
Okay.
There, we did the whole rear, and that was probably the first time I'd ever messed with doing a back half. And Brian, when he brought that truck to us, he bought that truck already bagged. Chris did, and it was green, and it needed help. It was bad. And Brian told him, like, we can't fix the back of this. You need to cut it off of the back of the cab and just redo the whole back section. So he ended up, there's like Art Morrison frame rails or something, and those frame rails were meant for cars with full roll cages in them. They're a thin wall, they flexed a bit. So Brian put a lot of tubing in that thing to make, to stiffen it up, and did that whole 4-link and everything in there. And that thing ended up being, Chris did a great job on that truck and really made that thing a nice truck. And I actually did all the paint work on the interior on that truck. I smoothed the dash.
Oh, really?
Did all the interior panels, all those door panels. That was fun, getting all the texture out of the dash and door panels, and all the interior cab panels were all texture from Toyota. So I had to primer them, sand them. Did a clear coat, painted everything in them. And then right after that, he had me repaint the rear frame and everything, because we had to do some repair work, and he needed new lower 4-link bars. He drug through the original ones. And so we built some new lower bars. I built some new lower bars for him, had them re-chromed. So it was kind of fun. I got to do some stuff on some of these trucks,
yeah, and that thing came out so good, because I remember seeing it at SEMA when I had went out there to hang out with Kool-Aid and the IF guys back in 03. I remember seeing it, and I was even looking at photos the other day, because that was one of the trucks that he had thanked Gendro and a lot of guys, in that feature. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Gendro about that one.
Yeah, that was that ended up being a really nice build. Chris was the owner of that truck. He's super detail oriented. He actually has a local shop here in Temecula doing stereos. He does a lot of stuff with razors and stuff like that, but he does stereo stuff, and he's still into modifying stuff, but he just doesn't do anything with really mini trucks anymore. But when I first met Chris, his other Toyota he had before that was he had the regular, the 89 to 95 body style.
Mm-hmm.
He had a standard cab. It was all shaved camper shell, but the paint was just absolutely, it was a factory, it looked like the factory, metallic red, that dark metallic red.
Okay.
But I don't think it was it had been repainted, but I don't know if they actually used the factory metallic paint, but it was a color almost exactly like it. But it was absolutely gorgeous, and the frame was gloss black and perfect, and his interior was perfect. I mean, he was just super anal about his truck. The thing was just absolutely perfect. And
yeah, and for anyone that wants to know, if you're thinking about which truck was it was issue 144, December 2003 cover. And like I said, I saw it at SEMA that year, and it was an indoor photo shoot. I mean, it just came out so nice. And when you look at all the work on it with the the rag top and stuff like that, the tag was built to drag, as he said. But that's pretty cool. Now, I remember, it was funny, I didn't put it together until years later, being on the East Coast, going online, hit these websites and all that. I do remember going on the Brand X custom site, and I even remember there was merchandise, it seemed like, shirts and stuff, but then it seemed like before I knew these guys' names, we'd be watching the DVDs, right, and we'd see Alex and the house parties and all that stuff, and it was kind of cool because Low Life Mikey and Ernie, rest in peace, and some of these guys, Oliver with Domination, they were showing the lifestyle piece of it, right, and going to show, or a lot of it was going to shows, but some of it was house parties, hanging out and stuff. And I remember it might have been Alex, displaying some of the shirts or something. I used to go, man, Brand X, that's a cool name. And then I do recall, now that you say it, with Gendro's name kind of being associated with it. So it makes sense how you guys had kind of looped him in, and he was kind of doing some of the work. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up having, Courtney actually shot a couple of tech articles at the shop right before we ended up closing up. And it's unfortunate we didn't last very long. I think it was just kind of it's one of those things, we kind of bit off more than we could chew at the beginning,
Yep.
We jumped into it. I mean, if we would have all managed ourselves better, I think we could have done really, really well with it. We all had the skill we needed to do it. I think we were just too much in a rush. We were, I wouldn't say we were young, but we were younger, but we were still, compared to some people, we were old already. So it was kind of like we had families, and we're just like, oh man, maybe we, jumped into this too quick.
Yeah, you don't want to work 24 hours and miss all the family stuff and all that.
Yeah, and our families were involved as much as they could, and they worked their, the wives worked their full-time jobs, and at the time I didn't have a kid at the time, but it was still kind of rough on us, and it was hard to pay bills, and we're just like, but we would have never known if we didn't try it. That's the thing. If there's anything to take away from it, is that you have to try sometimes. You just got to do it. You'll just never know. And
I agree,
because we had so much fun, and I learned so much. And it was just one of those times of your life where you just you feel like you live, because you just did something kind of out of the box that you would have never thought you could actually do. And and I'm thankful so much fun
for all of the shops that did try, right? Even you guys, because if everybody said, hey, I just want to work a normal job, get my paycheck, boom, weekend comes, every 2 weeks hits my account, that you wouldn't have a lot of shops. Even when we had Kerry from IF, he comes they come a little bit late 90s, and they leave their mark with these stock 4 body drops and stuff. And, he kind of said, you get to the point, you get burned out a little bit, all these long hours, constant build, SEMA this, SEMA that. You just kind of get to the point where you're like, man, I've done it for 5 or 10 years and or whatever the length of time is, and you just want to kind of sit back. But again, for the listeners, I think if you look back at, I've said this before, there's a lot of shops that have come and gone, but a lot of them have also left their mark, like the truck you were talking about earlier, and some of these others, I think of KRZ Customs, they left a mark on some of the stock 4 body drop stuff. IF did as well, and with especially Gendro, with the chop shop And then, we recently had a guest on talking about the drop shop, Joni Hall and stuff. These guys, they always kind of mention, dude, it wasn't easy, but if it wasn't for these shops biting off, maybe sometimes a little more they could chew, a lot of these trucks would have never got built, is what I'm getting at.
Right. Exactly. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Talk to us a little bit about, Courtney Halowell. You mentioned earlier, meeting him, and obviously, you had a tight relationship with him. But what's maybe one good Courtney story that maybe always makes you chuckle, or one that comes to mind when you think of your friend Courtney Halowell?
Well,
There's probably a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. I mentioned earlier about him taking the sander to my truck. That was one of those pretty memorable, kind of what the fuck moment. Sorry if I said that, but it really was though. I mean, I'm sure I probably said that too to him, but that was probably one of the most standout ones.
Yeah,
I remember too being at the house one time, and another former mini trucker that passed away a while back. Bob Flick was a really good friend of everybody from down in San Diego. All the anybody that's in NC San Diego would know who he is, and he had a chopped Mazda extra cab, and it was in the club. It was in a club called Choice that was kind of pre-NC. Some of those guys were in at the time.
I remember seeing the logo.
Yeah, and I just remember being over at Courtney's house one time, and somehow Courtney ended up with a paintball gun, or Bob did, I think it started out with, and Bob shot Courtney with it, like just one shot with the paintball gun at a decent range, not too bad, but it left Courtney a pretty bad welt. And Courtney was one of those laughing and pissed off at the same time. What the hell, dude? And somehow he wrestled the gun away from Bob and chased him with it, and just was unloading
relentless.
The thing at him. Just relentless, just unloaded the whole whatever was in it at the time. And it was just the funniest thing because Bob ended up with like 5 or 10 welts on his back, and it was just, I was laughing. I was just sitting there laughing, going, "God, thank God you ran out of paintballs, because otherwise you'd be shooting me right now." But it just. Courtney just had that. I don't, he never, it was very rare to see him mad, at him, and at anybody. And he just, I don't know, just something about him, and oh yeah, I stole his truck one time too, his Mazda.
Did he know, or was it?
Yeah, he knew. Well, he gave it to me to drive, but I stole it for a lot longer than I was supposed to have it.
Ah, okay.
So, and it was at the time when the truck was called Cruisin' in Technicolor, and it had the full candy graphics on the side. It was lowered, and he had a Z-Rack dump bed on it. Had the camper shell and everything, and he let me borrow it, and I'm like, he was doing something. I can't remember where he was at. And he was doing something, and I said, "Hey, let me go take it for a drive." He's like, "All right, yeah, go ahead. Don't be gone long, though, because, just don't be gone long." Okay. So I'm gone. I ended up being gone for probably 2 hours. And I went and visited. In fact, I think I went and visited Jason Pang up at the high school, because Jason went to the same high school as me, but he was a couple years behind me. And I think I went and visited him at the auto shop. So I'm up at the body shop, and I'm like, "Hey, check it out. I got Courtney's truck, And, I was like showing it off, and I get back, and Courtney's like, "What the hell were you?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "It's been 2 hours." He punched me in the arm. And he's got this serious look on his face, and I'm thinking, "Oh, I just ruined our friendship." And he just starts laughing at me. He goes, "You're an asshole." And and I'm like, "Oh my God, dude," and it's just, but he just, I don't know. It was hard. I don't think I ever saw him mad, like truly mad. And, it's what's unfortunate is that right before he passed, and I think about this, and I wasn't as close to him in the last few years as I wish I was previously, and it really hit me when, in fact, it was Alex that called me, and, and told me that Courtney had passed. So it's kind of, I just thought about that. That's just odd, to think about that, here we lost Alex recently, and Alex and us, we were so close for several years, and then he's the one that called me to tell me that Courtney had passed, and it was just it was rough, and I just, man, I didn't even know what to do, and then then I get the call that Alex passed this past year, and it's just like, man, what the?
It's a punch in the gut,
hell?
isn't it?
And it's rough, and I'm like, what is going on? Well, and when Ernie passed, and Ernie I wasn't super close with, Ernie Macias, but we would talk once in a while, message each other, kind of have a little short conversation, nothing major. Or I'd be somewhere, and all of a sudden he'd be there. I'm like, oh, hey, Ernie. And he's like, hey, what's up? And it was just one of those things, and that, just seeing all these iconic people, that is just,
yeah,
they're gone now. It's just it's a hole you'll never be filled. And it's just,
yeah,
it sucks. Because I still think about Courtney. Every day I got a little memorial, in my office. It's got his pictures. I got some pictures of him and the stuff from his memorial, and I've got NC, coins and memorabilia up there with him. And then I've added some Alex stuff with it now. And it's still weird to this day. After so many years that we're 11 years in, and
it doesn't get any easier to see that. Sometimes.
Yeah, it's still odd to think that we can't talk to Courtney anymore.
Yeah, and I was talking to my co-host, the other day, and we were just talking about how it's like you get to your mid 40s and late early 50s and stuff like that, and it's like he made a comment. He goes, "Man, we're just getting old." And it's like you don't really even think about it. And, you think about, I was reading something earlier, and I forget who it was, and they're like, yeah, so-and-so passed at 37, and I was like, damn, like, when you start outliving your friends or your idols or people that, that you grew up, friends and homies with, you almost, we all get caught up in the world of, like, with stress and money and family stuff and, our careers and stuff, but we have to remember that it's like, dude, something that's been really important to me is someone had said, that statement, we've all heard it, like, hey, your employer's going to have your job posted before your funeral, right? And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, as I've gotten older, I've tried to just go, like these things that we stress or that I stress, it's like, is it really that big a deal? Like, what if I wasn't even here today,
Right.
Like, so again, to your point, it's like, it's really tough when, you have friends and someone like Courtney. I mean, dude, like between Courtney and Ernie, like, Courtney was kind of the older school. Ernie was, came after Courtney, but they both were, bigger than life, Yeah.
Well, I mean, and same with Alex, that guy.
And Alex,
if you knew Alex
in
person, or known him, like some of us did, that guy, he just, he's a little harsh. But God, you couldn't help but laugh and smile at that guy, because of the way he acted, even just, he was just an amazing person, and his, his willingness to help, people with things and do things for people was always amazing, and make sure that you're happy. So, and I think Courtney was kind of the same way too, and he tried to help everybody he could.
Yeah, and they had unique positions. They had unique positions because Alex even said that. He goes, "Yo, if I get on somewhere and I could pull some guys through to go. Okay, well, hey, we need a shop manager. We need this. We need that. And his connections to TV and Ryan Fringley House and some of that stuff. But you posted. So it's ironic. You had mentioned Courtney's Mazda. You had posted a photo, the Technicolor, and I'll share it. What's kind of cool is you got the topper on it. It's got the Technicolor graphics, but in the background, you said this earlier, regular fuel, 86 cents, unleaded. Well, that was regular gas, and then the next one up was 89 cents, dude. Right. I mean, that's an era.
Yeah, that was our local. That was at our local 7-Eleven right there in town,
right off Prospect. It looks like
Prospect, right at the corner of Prospect and Cuyamaca in Santee, and that was kind of we had there was a taco shop in that little. It was a little corner strip mall, a really tiny thing. Had a 7-Eleven, had a taco shop. Everything you could ask for.
Right, as a mini truck or a young guy.
Yeah, as a mini trucker, it's everything you could ask for. A taco shop and a 7-Eleven. So a big gulp, and you go in and you grab a burrito. But that was our thing. We'd go there. Almost every weekend. We'd go hang out there for a little bit. I'm pretty sure we even got into a fight. Yeah, no, in fact, I know we got into a fight there one time too. And that was kind of interesting. We thought somebody was going through the 7-Eleven window. I don't even remember how that started, but I remember Courtney being there. We had a few other people, and it was just something went off. And I remember Courtney picking up some dude and almost putting him through a window. So
Wow.
that was a pretty wild moment. Oh yeah, you just Courtney's letting us know you don't want to be on his bad side. I think there's a lot of people out there that they're the silent bear, I guess you could call them. They're always good, but man, you don't want to get that one little thing, because I'd never seen Courtney like that. I was like, whoa, dude. He was not happy whatever happened. I think we had a guy talking smack or something like that, doing something. But yeah, I mean, we had the gas prices, and we did a lot of cruising back then. That was a lot of fun. We'd go to the beach, go down to Mission Beach, down to the roller coaster, down to Mission Bay, and hang out. It was, I think from Santee, it was 40-minute drive, 30-minute drive, something like that. Just hit the Interstate 8 freeway and, head west, and we get to the beach and go hang out there and cruise. Sometimes we do it on Sundays, and during the day, or Saturdays. But yeah, we'd hang out in the Thrifty parking lot, there was a lot of good cruising back then. We had our club meetings, Godfather's Pizza was big, we'd have meetings there. And,
yeah, it's good times. A lot of fun. When you look back at the last 25, 30 plus, you reflect kind of how far the scene has come. What do you value most, or what do you most appreciate about the scene all those years?
God, the friendships, of course.
Boom, that's it.
You can't. I won't call it friendship. I'll call it family. It really is. It's some of the people I've met over the years, and I don't think I've met enough of them, honestly, but because I took a break from the scene for a few years here and there, a couple times. I was big into it for several years, from like 87 through about 90, 91, right at 92. Right, NC started in 92, and I actually had stopped mini trucking in 92, and I started racing RC cars. Oh. And I did that for 5 years. I was full-time, besides working, I was near full-time racing our radio control off-road cars. That was a big thing for me. And in fact, Jason Pang did that for a while with me too, but I wasn't in the mini trucking scene at all when NC started. And then in 94, I got back into the mini trucking thing when I bought my brand new S10. And then again, snowball, lowering it, start out with just lowering it, started a club, started doing things, decided I want to bag it, hey, Brian, take it to a shop, get it bagged. And then was
that the blue one?
That was my blue S10. Yeah, the 94, which I did all the work on that, all the paint, all the body work, shaving the whole bag. I had
the custom tail lights.
The custom. It was that back then. That was the Alter Images setup. The Steve Nielsen.
Yeah.
From Alter Images. That was the combo. That was when him and I guess him and Bob were doing things together. So it was Alter Images parts. He can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how
that's what I remember. Yep.
I think that's what they were kind of combined to do things, but that was the Alter Images whole setup, on the back. He sent me
the Cali combos. Yeah, I think they were calling
the Cali combo.
That's what it was. Yeah,
and everything.
I remember seeing that on his VHS tape, and they were calling it the Cali combo, and I was like, yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and he sent me taillight fillers, and those taillights weren't even in that pan when I got it. He said I got the taillights separately, had to install them, everything, and so I did that whole thing, shaved the doors on the truck.
Yeah, that had those badass wheels too. I forget the wheels, and they had like the little hole. They're little holes around the middle. They look like Palisade wheels, but they were pretty dope.
I'm trying trying to think. The ones I had. Okay, so when I first built that truck, and this is my Alan Paradise story actually. So because Alan Paradise was a big influence at the beginning of mini trucking. So after I got that truck, somewhere, and I can't remember how I got in touch with him. Somehow we started talking, and he sees my truck and he says, "Hey, I could use your help," kind of thing for whatever. I'm not quoting me. Don't quote me on that, but
right.
He basically says, "Hey, do you want to do some stuff to your truck?" I'm like, "Well, of course I do." I had stock 15-inch wheels on it. He goes, I need a truck for some wheels, and I need some other stuff done. Here's a take a look at this wheel catalog. I don't remember if he had any catalog or whatever. He goes, tell me what you like in there. Okay. And there's a TSW wheels. So I found the TSW Evo, which was like a multi-spoke, just I think it was 7 spokes, in a 17-inch wheel. Had a silver with the blue aluminum center knockoff, in the middle. And I said, I like those. And he says, okay, perfect. So he gets me those with, and at the time, this was 1990, late 94, early 95, something like that. TSW didn't have offsets for trucks, not in those wheels. I think TSW had some truck wheels, but nothing that would have been in that style, mini trucker style. They had kind of an off-roady kind of wheel. So I said, I like those. And he's like, okay. So they had to get me something for like a Camaro or a Corvette. So they were way higher offset. Mm-hmm. So they were tucked like way in there, which worked out to an extent, but I had a hard time turning radius because they would rub my lower control arms up front.
Right, because the offset,
Yeah, because the offset. So I ended up having to run like a 3/8 spacer or something, which helped quite a bit. But he ended up getting me wheels, and they called General Tire, I think it was, and got me a full set of tires on it. So I had some staggers on tire size. I had these 17-inch TSWs on there, and then he calls up SFC sunroof. At the time, I don't even know if they're still around, but he says, "Do you want a sunroof for that thing?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll put a sunroof in it." He goes, "All right." And SFC was local up here, and he's like, made an appointment for me. He's like, "Go take the truck over, and they're going to put a sunroof in your truck."
Okay. Badass. Yeah.
So I had a sunroof. I put in a little pop-up sunroof in the thing. Had wheels on it. I think he got me something else too. I think he got me a tonneau cover for that thing or something. But there's a few things he got for it, and then we had it. Took it to Rezo. I think that was in 94, actually, before the end of the year. And then in 90, I think it was Rezo 95, 94, 95 that I took it there. And that was my wife's first run. And she goes, "If this is the way the runs are, I don't want to go." Because it was raining, it was cold. And no, because Rezo typically is more on the colder side because of the time of year.
Yep.
Okay. And being and where it's located at is right at the base of kind of towards closer to the mountains a little bit, so it's usually colder. And that year was wet and rainy the whole time, and she's just like, "This sucks." And but we had fun, and my truck was in a booth for the sunroof company, and then so Alan really took care of me there, and that was kind of a cool thing, that I hadn't seen him for a couple of years, and he sees my truck and was like, "Hey, that's the brand new S10. Let's do some stuff for it." He did a bunch of photo shoots. I have pictures. I have behind the scenes photos of him shooting photos. I'll get those out. I'll get them to you so you can check them out. But him standing on a step ladder, and he's doing photo shoot in this big empty parking lot, and he's shooting my truck, and you can see it's just got like a 4.5 drop on it. It's got the TSW wheels. You can see the sunroof, and it's just super clean. It was just a simple truck at the time. It was a sport truck. The way I had it built originally, the first iteration of that truck.
Got it.
And then later on is when I went to smaller tires, lowered it more, and then bagged it, and went through all that, shaving everything, doors. I did all the body work and paint on it. Brian did the suspension on it. Then that's where, like I said, I started getting to the friends portion or family portion of these people I've met over the years. You almost always can count on them at some point in your lifetime again for stuff, later down the road, so it's always good to value that friendship and have that. And the people I've met over the years are just amazing. I mean, the guys in Arizona are probably some of our closest friends, besides the local San Diego guys that I get with, here and there. And it's, I've known some of these people for close to 30 years, and some of them more.
Yeah. Because
I've known Jason Pang since '89. I've known Gendro since the early '90s, so right around 30 years. And Sal, he talked about Sal. I've known Sal, and Mike Collins. Mike Collins lives here in Temecula, so I see Mike Collins. At all local shows. I just went out to Vegas. For if you were looking at my Instagram, I just went out to Vegas, to meet up with Andy Mooring out there from Relax Atmosphere.
I did see
spend
that.
a weekend with him.
Yep.
And Andy and I went over to the show Whiskey Pete's, and I said, "Hey man, my friend Mike's going to be there." So we went and visited Mike, and Mike's like, "What are you doing here?" I came to see you. What do you think? And it's just, and some of the people, and it's when you get to know some of these people, a good friendship, even if you don't see them for a year or 2 years, it's like you never left. You pick up where you left off, and there's nothing better feeling than knowing you have friendships like that in family. Derek, there's guys out in Arizona, Derek, Big D, he'll come out and he'll be like, "Hey, I'm coming out for a weekend. We got to go to dinner, and we'll get a bunch of us guys from San Diego for dinner, One of our newest members came out from Colorado. We just saw him in Oklahoma at the 30th, and he just got stickered finally. And he came out from Colorado, and he's like, "I'm going to be in town. We need to get to dinner." We're like, "We just saw you 2 weeks ago. You want to see us again?" But we all met up, and down in San Diego. We drove down to San Diego, and we all met up, and we had a dinner with 4 or 5 members and all the wives and stuff. So it was a good time, and it's always good to see your friends and family, and it's pretty cool when you realize that you've been friends with these people for 20 to 30 years, and you're still friends just like the day you guys met. So
yeah, it is interesting.
That's probably the biggest thing, and and unfortunately, with Courtney being gone, that's a tough one to deal with. But I talked to his mom, Maggie. Here and there, and she's definitely the mama of the group for sure for a lot of us, and she treats my son like it's her grandchild, and like he's her grandchild, and just about anybody else that has kids too, she probably does the same, and she's an amazing woman that to hang out with. And I see where Courtney got some of his personality from for sure. So
yeah, for sure. And that's the cool thing, Mini Truckin', it's a big family. Obviously there's clubs, you're a proud member of Negative Camber. We've established that. And there's a lot of good people. I'm in ST, been in there a long time, and a lot of good kinfolk there. And it's just one of those things where it's crazy that we've been doing this stuff as long as we have, and we still enjoy doing it. And the people you get together with kinfolk. I know, Severed and NC just celebrated, their 30th anniversary. You guys had your big blowout at Slamboree and stuff, and it's badass. But dude, I mean, we've really covered a lot, dude. I mean, you talk about the early days and rest in peace, Alex and Courtney, and you talk about so many different things, even the time that you kind of spent there at Brand X with Alex, and then of course Gendro kind of there as well. But man, is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch upon that you wanted to? Quick break for podcast identification. You're listening to Our Lifestyle Podcast, also known as OLP. We want to thank our title sponsor, Custom Car Show Productions. Their flagship event is Biloxi, Mississippi, June 2023. It's going to be the 21st annual. Come on out. Gallivant down to Biloxi. It's right there on the coast, and you will have a damn good time. Scrapinthecoast.com, SCRAPIN, thecoast.com. Back to the interview already in progress.
Well, there's too much to touch on. There's so much. There is so much out there. I mean, like I said, the people I've met, and it's just been a fun road. And I there's, like I said, there's some people that I wish I would have spent more time with, like Courtney. Right before he passed, he was up in LA and I was down here, and I wasn't doing a whole lot of mini truck stuff. So, we'd text once in a while, "Hey, what are you doing?" Or his typical thing. And I know he's had quite a few other people probably attest to it. "Hey, what are you wearing?" That was his thing. What you wearing? And he made a few impromptu phone. I tell you what, he made some impromptu phone calls here and there during some alone time, if you know what I mean, with some other people. He always, for some reason, he'd call at the wrong time. I'm like, why are you calling right now? And just my wife would be like, is that Courtney again? Yep. How does he call every time?
He knows. He knew.
He just knows. But it's just that's just for whatever reason, I don't know what it was. He did it several times. And it's like, how do you? And he just laughed. And I'm like, how do you do that? I don't know. Just pure luck, I guess. But and I know he's still with us, and he's still watching us, and he throws up his, he lets us know he's there sometimes, and. In fact, I'll tell you this one quick story. One last story.
Sure.
It actually has to do with Courtney. After he passed, and it was his house. We had cleaned out his house and stuff, and I had to go pick up a couple things from Maggie down over at the house that he had, and my wife and I and my son went up there to meet up with her, and we pulled up, and we're pulling down the driveway of the house, and I didn't know where she was at, but I saw the garage door open. The garage was actually kind of above the house and separate from it, and that's where he kept his all his truck and his tools and everything, like his trucks, Kirby and stuff up there. And I pulled up. And I had the windows down on our car, and I pulled up, and I stopped, turned it off, and I opened the door, and there was no sound. I remember definitively it was quiet. But then all of a sudden, the radio kicks on, coming from the garage, and it's the song "Simple Man" by Lynyrd Skynyrd, which is, if you've seen his memorial video, that's the song that gets played during it. And that's like a huge song for us, for listening to, and we hear that. And other people have had it happen where it just comes on at impromptu moments. And it came on. And I was like, I looked up at the garage, and I'm like, well, that's crazy. And I told my wife, I said, "Do you hear that?" She goes, "What?" I was, "Listen." And she's like, "Oh." I'm like, that just came on just now. So I walk up there thinking, well, maybe Maggie's up there. And she wasn't. There was nobody in the garage at all. And I look down at the house, and here she comes walking out of the house. I'm like, "Hey, come here." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Listen to the song." And she's like, "Did you turn that on?" I said, "No." And you can just see, you just see it in her eyes. It was just like, holy shit. He's watching us, and it was just, man, I tell you what, it was like my hair on my arms was standing up when that happened. I was just like, what the hell just happened? Because there was nothing on the radio when we pulled up. She goes, "There wasn't?" I said, it was dead silent. I got out of the car, and then it came on. And she's like, wow, that was weird. And it was just, that's one of those, another one of those stories. It's just, he's there. He knows, and it was just,
yeah,
you can't explain it. It was weird.
Yeah, you can't. And I know there's a little connection to my dad, and maybe that being the last song that he listened to. And it's weird that when you said that, it made me think that, it's crazy. My dad used to say how music, it really ties into society, and just, a song can bring back nostalgia, but it can also remind you of someone, and, it's just crazy how that is, dude. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. A lot of people are fortunate enough to live these long lives. My wife's grandfather, he's 92, and he still drives around. He's got his BMW little SUV, and he's just cruising around, just doing his own thing. I think he actually has a Cadillac now. When he got the BMW, he's like, "Yeah, this will be the last car I ever buy." And we're like, "Don't say that, Gramps." And next thing you know, a couple years goes by, and he goes, "I traded it in. I wanted the Cadillac back." And dude drives around, and hangs out with his friends. He's 92, and I thought to myself, I hope I could do like half the stuff that Gramps can do, when,
Right.
like I'm thinking, man, when I get to 80, what am I going to be doing? Watching freaking, Wheel of Fortune all day or some shit. But and then you have other people that make it to 20, 25, 30, 35, if you're lucky 40. And then it's just like, you think back and you're like, man, I can't talk to those people, like I used to. And
Right.
I think that's something that I've tried to also just absorb and learn is that, like if you do want to hang out with someone or, if someone does mean a lot to you, we all know we've lost some people and we go, damn, I wish I could have hung out with them again. It's like you almost have to just like be like, you know what, I want to go hang out with so-and-so, or make time. Like, we're going to try to get some people together a little bit more next year for local stuff, just to get together and hang out, and I think that's important. So it is crazy how those little signs kind of come back, But I appreciate you sharing that, dude. I really do. And to all the NC guys out there, many of you have been, willing to come on and share awesome stories about great people like Alex, like Courtney, and so many others that we've lost. And it's one of those things where it just blows my mind each year that we're losing so many great people. So we got to give them their flowers, so to speak, while they're here,
Yeah.
But why don't you give your wife and son a shout out?
Oh, do I have to? No, I'm just kidding. Of course I do. No, I couldn't. You know what? It's like I said before earlier. She's been a huge supporter, of this whole ride with, in the scene, over the years, and just an amazing person to be able to put up with it. I mean, and anybody that's in the club that has met her knows, she's one of us. I mean, she had, we built her, I built her a bagged Civic, and we'd roll around in my S10 and she'd had her bagged Civic, and the guys treat her like she was, part of the club, back then. And she's been a part of a lot of the NC Christmas parties out here and, helping, run them and put them on and stuff like that over the years that when we had, we were having them all the time. And my kid is a chip off the block, we actually have a square body S10 for him. He's 13, but
Hells
truck,
yeah.
Sitting off to the side waiting. I'm parked in my neighbor's driveway right now. So eventually, we might get to that. And
That's
he's
awesome.
He loves mini trucks, but he loves all kinds of cars. He's
a car kid. He's not a car guy.
He's a car kid. He loves, he sees a Lamborghini or, he can name off. He's like me when I was his age. I could name off any kind of car rolling down the road.
Driving on the road.
Back then it was 55 to 57 Chevys, Impalas, Mercs, 49 to 51 Mercs and stuff like that, and 32 Roadsters.
Now he's like 2022 Kia hybrid.
Him is it's the Bugatti Veyrons, Lamborghinis, and he knows which Lamborghini it is, because they got the Aventador, the Countach, all these, and he knows he can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that looks like that's the Aventador, or whatever, just all these, and I kind of know him, I go, oh God, I know that's a Lamborghini, but I couldn't tell because I don't keep up with them, but that's a Ferrari, and he plays his Need for Speed and he builds cars on there, and he just loves it.
He knows
and
more than I know.
Because, yeah, and it's funny because he plugs into his music, and I listen to a lot of different music, and that's, for me, I'll listen to everything from the 50s, rock and roll to rockabilly. I listen to some classic rock. I listen to, old school rap. I don't listen to a lot of new rap. I do listen to a little Eminem, but mostly old school. I've been listening. In fact, on the way home from work today, I was listening to DJ Magic Mice. So a lot of bass explosion type stuff. So but it's weird. He likes all kinds of music like me. But lately, he's been listening to a lot of I'm talking classic rock. Like we're talking Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. He loves, some of the Rolling Stones songs, but he bounces around too. Sometimes next thing you know, he'll be listening to some newer rap stuff, and it just amazes me that, 13 years old and, I don't listen to Rolling Stones, but all of a sudden, you know, he's listening to Rolling Stones. Like, you know, I see a red door and I want to paint it black, and he loves that song. You know,
That's
I'm
great.
like, where do you get that from? So I don't know, I just like it. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I don't mind it. You know, I think it's awesome that he likes that kind of stuff. You know, and he really, you know, my wife's always called him. You know, told him, you know, so that he's my mini me. You know, he's acts like me, walks like me. You know, says things like me. He's hilarious. You know, and it's just fun to, you know, it's fun to hang out. You know, he likes going to car shows with me. You know, and he took the road trip to Oklahoma with us for the 30th. You know, he's like, we're going to drive. I'm like, hell, trust me, you're going to love it. You know, we stopped at Cadillac Ranch on the way out. You know, and you know, we had a blast. You know, and he loved looking at the stuff, and you know, he likes making little short videos and stuff like that. So he had a blast looking at all the cars and stuff. And he wears his NC shirts with pride. You know, he wears them to school and wears his, you know, he loves it. He's turning into sneakerhead right now, but that's, you know, he likes those Nikes and the Jordans, and you know,
expensive habit. I know
he can name all. Yeah, don't trust me. I know. I know. I'm like, how much are those shoes? No, you're not getting those.
But old school BMX, shoes, cars, trucks. It's all an addiction. It's all money.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. But you know, no, I can't take, you know, my wife and him more, you know, anymore. It's without them, you know, it wouldn't be as fun as it is. You know, I don't want to go to these things by myself all the time. You know, I mean, yeah, I got my other friends and family there, but having them there, I love having them there because it's, you know, they're part of it, you know, and they're treated, you know, like family by, you know, all these people. The mini trucking, you know, community really, you know, it's a big family, you know, and everybody, you know, the majority of the people are very respectful of it and knows what it's like. And you see a lot of kids now, you know, at these things, you know, where the parents bring their kids to these, you know, and so it's fun to see when the kids are involved and enjoy the scene, you know.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you. Cool. Salute to NC Worldwide. And, appreciate, you know, salute to your family, and just keep doing what you do, man. And hopefully we'll get a chance to link up at a show, whether it's out west or, you know, somewhere in the middle this coming year.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm trying to get that OBS done so I can take it to a few shows and get it cruising here. I gotta get that thing done soon. So I've been itching to drive it, and I know I got some people are like bugging me, like, when are you gonna get that thing done? It's coming. I promise.
Well, stay the course, man. And Steve, appreciate you. Everyone go on Facebook or Instagram, type in Steve Butts, and you can find him on there. Again, we gave out his Instagram earlier. Check him out and show him some love. I appreciate it, dude. And Lord willing, we'll have another episode next week, man. Any last words?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I had mentioned for me to be on here is kind of surreal. You know, I haven't been one of those.
Like a talkative person.
I don't fall into the category of like Alex and Courtney and some of these guys have had, you know, been in that scene, but you know, I've been around for a long time, and you know, I've been with these guys for a long time and known a lot of what they've done and kind of know the inside. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to kind of show a little different side of some of that stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure, dude. It's a good trip down memory lane. And like I said, we appreciate you, and keep doing what you do, and have a safe holiday season, brother.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you do the same. And everybody out there, stay safe, have fun, and have a great holiday.
Let's keep it going.